To me, there's a major challenge to the industry right now, these days. The new generations, Generation Z, and even the millennials, they're highly sociable.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of wired all the time to social platforms. They care less what's private and what's not. They tend to share more information, and it looks like the boundaries or the limits of what is shareable and what's not to them is just kind of diluted. It's not clear. There is no solid line that restricts what to share of your private data and private life versus what to share. The vulnerabilities are huge when it comes to security. Billions, even trillions of dollars globally are being lost by companies, by different organizations every year as a result of sabotaging their systems and platforms, and breaches are happening or attacks that they're having on their mainframes and platforms and systems and applications. All the activists that are saying, hey, what about my privacy? How come these huge companies are using all my data and crunching it with big data analytics?
There's ethical use of technology is a really important thing, ethical use of your data. And there are large organizations today that are name brand like Google and Facebook that provide no tangible object, but they're multi-billion-dollar companies global. Imagine your life without Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. They don't make a product. There's nothing there, right? They run data centers and things like that, but they don't actually give you something to hold. And the only way they can do that is by selling your data. I'm sure you haven't read the terms of use on Instagram. Right?
Never.
Why would you? In it clearly says that the Instagram app on Android and iOS is actually going to track your web history and it's going to track your location. So they can do things like give you ads, right? That's how they generate business. But you're right. Why? Millennials and Gen Z don't care because Instagram is a cool service, right? I get pictures of the cool things that I want to see. I can post stupid pictures with my friends. It's fun. I love it.
How is this being tackled with organizations like Microsoft when they sit down and think about their product strategy, when they sit down and discuss the future of their company?
Like I said, there's an ethical responsibility from companies to do that. So social media companies are struggling with that now because they collect a lot of data, whereas corporations like, say, Amazon and Microsoft, and even Uber does a pretty decent job of it, they know that they cannot exist. They will fail to exist if they don't hold the public's trust. And on top of that, those are large companies. The federal government could say, hey, antitrust, and chop you up and you'll no longer exist again. Facebook's fighting that right now. Google's fighting that right now. Microsoft has already fought that battle.
Who's going to have the upper hand, Matt? Is it the government or these companies? Who's going to rule? Who's going to rule them all?
The end users. Whoever the person is that says, hey, I don't want Facebook. Like, no, it's not acceptable, Facebook, that you do X, Y, and Z, so I'm going to stop using you. So their ads no longer generate money.
Do you think the new generations can ever stop using Instagrams and Facebook? Do you feel or see a reverse migration from these platforms?
Facebook specifically in the last 2 years has noted a drastic change in the younger, when I say younger generation.
No, a drastic change in the demographics probably and the age.
Yeah, so I'm 33 and...
You're out of Facebook probably.
No, I've been out of Facebook for years.
Oh, okay.
And other people my same age are the same.
Well, I'm one of the very few on planet Earth that never had Facebook.
Oh.
And I'm proud of it.
How did you ever attend any party ever?
I mean, don't ask me how I was able to resist, the temptations all over the years. But what I realized, a lot of my friends, and my wife in particular, they actually pulled off.
Yeah.
They pulled the plug of Facebook
because
almost.
It provides no value in your life.
No, it became a regressive factor to their day-to-day emotional stability.
Yeah.
Because everyone is happy on Facebook. Everyone is successful on Facebook. Everyone is achieving more on Facebook. Everyone is traveling all the time. Everyone is having tons of friends. Everyone is having a beautiful day, is eating the best food on Facebook, which is absolutely detached or far from what the realities are.
The problem is that Facebook is aware that they're struggling. Facebook, the product of Facebook, well, that's why they also own WhatsApp, and that's why they own Instagram. They also own several other tech companies that people are moving to. They jump ahead of that to stay into it. Good example, Snapchat started several years back and started to get big. They had an IPO, et cetera, like successful company.
It was a terrible IPO, by the way, and these guys are never going to make money, but they still exist.
Yep. There's a lot of companies that are like that.
It's crazy.
So Instagram just said, hey, that's a cool idea. I'm just going to build that in. And then done. Snapchat's dead.
Exactly. So they integrated the same features in Instagram.
The fact that they have such a head start and that amount of capital, they can just buy somebody or build it. And at the moment they lose the trust, they'll no longer be able to do that. So I think end users are going to maintain that. The moment that they realize that, hey, corporations are terrifying. So for instance, the federal government is limited by our Constitution. And of course, there's some bend and flex, and that happens more often than some of us would like. But corporations don't have that same thing. They have their own laws that they'd abide by, but there's no privacy. There's no real privacy law on that, because I'm going to give you my credit card. I'm going to give you my home address. You know what I do every day. The government can't do those things legally. Sometimes they do, right? But there's repercussions. Whereas companies, that's a business enabler for them. And end users like that because it's a cool feature. Prime Now, right? I can get an Amazon product in 2 hours. The only way they can do that is by knowing what I like and stocking that in my local data center. So the moment that customers no longer trust that service is when that service stops being successful.
Are we going to get to a time where you get a small button or a small clickable feature within the mobile app or any of the apps, whether on your desktop or your mobile, where you can simply and easily choose not to share any of your information with anyone?
Ethical technology companies are starting to build solutions around this. The problem is that one of the main providers that people use is Google, and Google gets paid based on ad service. They do have a cloud service that is semi-successful, they're doing okay, but a majority of the revenue is browsing and ads. And there's no incentive for them to stop doing that. It would destroy their service. But we're seeing Mozilla is starting to develop something called DNS over HTTPS, which means that nobody knows where you're browsing. I can't do a name lookup, or you can't tell what my name lookup was. So it's being built into browsers. In fact, the Edge browser on Microsoft is starting to do the same thing. So there's starting to be privacy built into it. So one of an ethical pillar is to not collect more data than you need. And most companies know that, but they'll collect as much as they can. So technology companies are saying, hey, this isn't okay because I'm exposing myself. And of course, there's an affiliation of organizations that just think it's unethical and they will choose to not do that. So when those kind of groups get a little larger, I think that we'll notice that technology changes fundamentally in terms of privacy. So it's an interesting balance. So corporations are incentivized to, one, sell your data, and then the ones that don't are incentivized to protect your data.
Does Microsoft sell their users' data?
That's a good question. So Bing specifically, first, nobody uses Bing as a search history. Nobody does that.
5%, 7% market share? How much?
But they don't. I have no idea.
Yeah,
but it's nothing.
Single digit for sure. So.
We did get tagged. In fact, LinkedIn. So Microsoft owns LinkedIn. We bought the LinkedIn database so we could use that data. But I do not believe that we sell it at the same degree. So that's why I mentioned that Amazon and Microsoft and Uber do a better job at that.
Very aggressive.
They have no need to sell your data because they all produce successful products.